waited for no interruptions, I would never be able to record. Alright, welcome back. We are on Unit 1.4, evaluating, simplifying algebraic expressions using things like substitution property. The idea that if n equals 8, you can replace n with 8. You can substitute the value for the variable and get rid of the variable. Alright, so we're going to do that a few times. So it says evaluate each expression for the given variable. So n squared minus 3n plus 8 if n equals 4. So all we're going to do is substitute the 4 everywhere there's an n. And remember, when you substitute for a variable, put it in parentheses just so you know what you substituted. Right? So n squared becomes 4 in parentheses squared minus 3 times 4 plus 8. I just substituted the 4 for the n. Everywhere there was an n, there is now a 4. And then I just follow order of operations. 4 squared, 16. Negative 3 times 4 is negative 12 plus 8. 16 minus 12 is 4 plus 8, 12. Simple enough. Replace, substitute, plug it in, whatever you want to call it, and then solve using order of operations. Ooh, this one has absolute value bars. Fun. Alright, remember, absolute value bars are asking for the distance from 0 on the number line. I'll remind you when we get there. Alright, let's replace our variables first. 4, absolute value bar, m, which is negative 7, minus n, which is 2, absolute value bar. So you can treat absolute value bars also like parentheses, grouping symbols. Do what's inside them first. So we have 4, absolute value bar, negative 7 minus 2. So we have negative 7 minus 2 would be negative 9. Alright, then once you're down to an integer, one single integer in your absolute value bars, then you can find the absolute value, which is your distance from 0. Right? How far is negative 9 from 0? It is 9 steps. Thus, the absolute value of negative 9 is just 9. It is 9 steps away from 0. 4 times 9 is 36. One baby step at a time. Alright, 5. We'll bring it in fractions, don't panic. S squared times t minus 10. So s squared times t minus 10. Alright, exponent first. 64 times 3 over 4 minus 10. Now remember, when you're multiplying, if one is a whole number, just make it a fraction. If you're multiplying fractions, they have to both be fractions. Right? Simplify first, in my opinion, it makes a huge difference. 4 goes into itself once. It goes into 64 16 times. And now all you have to do is multiply 16 times 3. 16 times 3, 8, 48. So now we have 48 minus 10, and our last step gets us down to 38. Ooh, interesting. Alright. We have 6 is A and negative 8 is B. So we have 6 plus negative 8 to the 5th power over 6 minus 2 negative 8 to the 2nd power. I know. Alright, so inside the parentheses, first. 6 minus 8 is negative 2. So then we're just going to get negative 2 to the 5th power right there. And then there's nothing inside the parentheses here, but there is an exponent, right? So we're going to do 6 minus 2 times negative 8 times negative 8, because negative 8 squared is 64. We figured out earlier that 2 to the 5th power was 32. And because there's 5 negative signs, it's going to be negative 32. If there's an odd number of negative signs, remember. And then we have 64 times negative 2, so we're going to have 6 minus 128. So 64 times 2 is 128. One negative sign means one negative sign. 6 minus 128 is 122. So then we have negative 32 over negative 122. They're both negative, even number of negative signs. That means your answer is going to be positive. So you can ignore the negative signs now. You can ignore the negative signs. They can both be divided by 2. You know that because they're both even, right? 32 divided by 2 is 16. 122 divided by 2 . 61. That can't be simplified any further, so your answer is literally 16 over 61. It started weird, it went weird, it ended weird. I don't know, that's sometimes just how it is. That's just how it is. Alright, number 9. Negative q squared minus r squared plus 3s. Now, remember what I said about variables with no coefficient, right? If you have x by itself, there's actually an invisible 1 in front of it. And if you have negative x by itself, there's actually a negative 1 in front of it. All right? You need to remember that because that's going to come up a lot in this one, right? Because if it helps you, go back and put the negatives. There's a negative 1 there. There's a negative 1 there. You see what I'm saying? So if it helps you, go put them because it matters. It might change the sign if you're not careful. All right? So negative q squared minus 1 r, which is negative 6, squared plus 3, negative 20. You see why it matters now? If you would have just put negative 9, you would have done negative 9 squared, which is 81. But it's actually negative 1 times 9 squared. So you're going to end up with negative 81. It changes the sign. You've got to be careful. Alright, so negative 81. This is 36, negative 36. This is 3/20, which is 60. And an odd number, we know it's going to be odd because it's a negative, it's an odd number, it's only one negative. Negative 60. All three are negative. All three are negative. They have the same sign. So we're just going to add them together and keep the sign. So we know our answer is going to be negative. And then we have 81 and 36, which is 117, and then we're going to add 60, so 177. So negative 177. Just like that. But you got to be extra careful with the invisible ones. I know, invisible math. I told you it would come up again. You thought I was kidding. I wasn't. Just wait until we get into imaginary numbers. X is negative 3, y is negative 2, so we have 2. This one has a coefficient, so there's no invisible 1. X squared. This one has a coefficient, so there's no imaginary 1. 5x y. This one does not have a coefficient, so there is an imaginary 1. Negative 2 to the third power. Whew. Alright, let's deal with the exponents first. There's nothing inside the parentheses I can do. So we're going to have 2. 3 to the second power is 9, and because it's a negative times a negative, it's positive. Minus 5. We know these are going to be multiplied. In fact, all three of them are going to be multiplied together. It doesn't matter which order you do them in. So if you want to go ahead and do that, you can. There's 1, 2, 3 negatives. That's an odd number. You know the answer is going to be negative. 5 times 3 is 15. Times 2 is 30. So it's a negative 30. Or you could do 3 times 2, which is 6. 6 times 5 is 30. Remember, when you're adding or multiplying, the order doesn't matter. That's commutative property. You can do it in any order you want. So whichever is easier for you, to do 15 times 2 or to do 6 times 5. Whichever is easier for you. Alright, and then you have negative 1 times negative 2 to the third power. 3 negative signs, so we know it's going to be negative. 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8. All the exponents are gone. Alright, so we have 2 times 9, which is 18, minus 30, negative 1 times negative 8 is positive 8. If you had forgotten this invisible 1 right here, you would have forgot it here, you would have forgot it here, and you would have changed your answer. Right? Always remember there's an invisible 1 in front of every variable, unless it already has a coefficient. Right? So then we have 18 minus 30. The difference between 18 and 30 is 12. 30 is the bigger number. So we're going to go negative 12 plus 8. The difference between 8 and 12 is 4. 12 is the bigger number. You should end up with negative 4. And that is correct. Kosher? Awesome. Good luck.